And she said, yes, but you can hang up. We're not moving to Birmingham. So I had absolutely no thought of going over there. And a home magazine, what did I know about that? And he said, you know, if we hired you, we'd start you at $13,500. I was making $150.
Yeah,
I thought, well, no, I can always come back. And they used to vote every Thursday as to whether we'd keep going. But we finally made it.
So that was what.
No matter what you do, they're arrogant and they try to tell you, they've got their field of expertise and they presume you know what they're talking about. Whether it's a banker, it doesn't matter. Somebody. I have learned the perfect comeback. I say, excuse me, do you know what one guy like that means? And they look at you like you did. No, I know that, but I do. I do. And I will tell you what it means if you don't tell me what you're talking about. And it always works. It always works. So I'm grateful for my experience.
Joe Livingston made the mistake of bringing this line hotel room and introduce you to vice versa. And you were wearing a tan cashmere sweater. And so you were young and innocent. And I don't think I'd been there 10 minutes. I said, that was 250 times.
I know you've been in Mexico 6 months ago. I went to Atlanta.
That was tough.
I was covering, Bill McGrath was sports editor in Tallahassee, and I was covering from the state. And I was, assistant sports editor in Mexico, covering Florida State football. And Tom Nugent was the coach. And what Bill didn't know, I go to church on Sunday, and Tom was Dave Nugent. They both Catholic, so I go to church with them. They have community meetings, so they have breakfast with me. I'm getting all these damn stories at the time. And Bill McGrath couldn't figure out, what's that kid doing? I'm going to church with my that's so,
I'll tell you what kind of organization it was at that time, and I can't see the word. Jack Harvard, who was I guess, I don't know. Anyways, Harvard came up and said, you gotta get rid of
I keep believing that. But I just didn't care how good he was at that.
And he said, you gotta do it, bitch. So I said, but I don't know how. What am I going to do? He said, pick out the left guy. And I hired him down. Bill from Valdosta, I guess about 2 years before, something like that. I said, that's fine, I hear he's a good man.
He was not overly interested.
Sorry, that's the way it is.
He did.
So I had to call Bill
and let him go?
and let him go.
Yeah,
He wanted to ever had to do it in my life, but it was not fun to do it. As it turned out, one of the best breaks he ever got.
He went down to Tallahassee?
Went down to Tallahassee, and he became a town figure of great
Yeah.
success. And it was good for him.
I'd like to propose a toast for Jack Harvard's death.
Wait a minute back here. I want Mentor to tell you about the scene. I didn't go to Jack Harvard's funeral because he didn't drink that beer.
I wouldn't have gone in there, sure. But anyway, I went in and Jesse was sitting at the bar. So I go over and sit down beside him, and he was into the cups a little bit. And really down and depressed, and I said, Jesse, are you all right? And he looked at me, and I swear to God, there were tears in his eyes and water. And he said, you have no idea what it's like to get up every day of your life and go to work and to read that son of a bitch. and to know that you can't even touch anything he does. He was
doing the right thing.
Yeah, he was. He was honest, wasn't he? He was honest.
But he'll never understand.
But he was just, he was sitting there, and I figured it out. He was sitting there, realized that no, he couldn't write with you. He couldn't do anything with you. So it was sad.
How many years from Lincoln Journal?
Well, I've been in town 54 years. I was first 7 years.
Oh, I have, First edition had been out about 30 minutes when we started getting phone calls. The guy he had quoted so beautifully had been dead for 2 years. We had to get the story out for the second edition.
Y'all remember the time?
Yeah, but Jason couldn't write like that. Right.
The only time in my 10 years that Tarver came charging into the sports department, it was a Saturday morning of all things, and on the Friday night, the Constitution, Manchester, Georgia played a football game, and they had twins, and one of the twins was famous and made all the touchdowns, and the other one never got to do anything. But in this game, he scored a winning touchdown, the other twins. The Constitution ran a story quoting, identifying the good player as scoring the winning touchdown. And Daddy was furious because the other boy never got any attention. So he came to the paper and went to Tarver's office and said, I tried to call the sports sector and they wouldn't answer.
And drove all the way up there.
Yeah, and Tarver comes charging down. Christian was sitting in the slot, with his hat on. And Tarver started, this is the most arrogant group of people in the entire newspaper. You won't answer the phone, you treat our customers. Man, he was really going, oh no. Christian didn't take off his hat, looked up at him and said, Mr. Tarver, why don't you go back upstairs and run the company and we'll run the sports section. We got the Wrights twins scoring the touchdown in the journal.
He was not a bum. He'd tell you one way or another. He was a great man. And you know something? George Bickers is running WSB radio, WSB television, the Journal, and the Constitution. And the highest salary he ever made was $40,000 in their right hand. $40,000.
That sounds like baseball salaries then, if they had them now.
Well, we got some stock. We can make that one at that.
$40,000.
Yeah, but they have insurance, Furman, or perks.
I thought one of the funniest things was before one of the Journal All-Star games, and I kept writing about Gann,
Stan Gann.
and then I'd quote Scarborough saying it's best since Castleberry, and then I'd quote somebody else saying equal to Castleberry, and then the next day I'd say better than Castleberry, and then it was all Gann took the place of Moose Scourin and Mickey Mantle and Roger Merritt was Gann. And he didn't even dress out for the game. He came down with mononuclear.
I remember that. Do you remember when he got the tech? He was practicing his quick draw and shot himself in the leg.
He got the tech, and I think he started at quarterback, and before the game was over, Billy Lockridge was in, and Stan was holding for extra points and field goal. Never, but he has a son who's a golfer. Yeah, pretty, not, I mean, not.
That's his son, Stan, Stan also.
Stan Jr.
His wife understands a good job.
I remember, one thing I remember about Lockridge, I was out at tech practice and Coach Dodd was up on his little tower and he was giving me this stuff back. Well, the modern athlete is so much better than the old days and no. And I said, instead of arguing with him, I said, Coach Dodd, I said, I'm sure you're right. I said, I know you in the Hall of Fame and everything, but you couldn't punt with a guy like Lockridge. I said, it'd be pretty ridiculous if you were to try to do that. You were a young man. He blew his whistle and stopped practice, climbed down off the tower, and I climbed down off the tower with him. I didn't know what he was going to do. And the coaches were somewhat startled. He said, come over here, Billy. Give me 2 balls. And he gave him a ball, and he said, now kick the ball up there on top of that tower, Billy. And Lockridge was in a state of terror because he didn't know what was wrong and why he was doing it. He kicked it and went about 20 yards over the tower. Coach Dodd didn't do a practice kick anything. He took it, dropped it, kicked it, and knocked the chair over we had been sitting in. Blew his whistle and said, let's go. And that whole stuff about the modern player was so much better than the old players. Kind of went after.
Well, he referred to the days of the coffin corner kick. Nobody ever heard of today.
That's true.
When he recruited Lockridge, in those days it was legal, he'd take him to his basement and play, his den and play pool, and Lockridge would clean his clock. Well, when he signed him, he signed about 7 quarterbacks. He said, well, Billy, let's shoot a let's shoot it around the pool to celebrate. And God just beat him to death and then said, Billy, I think you got a little bit to learn about this college life. He's been just dying for him, you know.
The thing I always appreciated about Coach Dodd is you've covered his practice.
He always had two stories. He manipulated the odds.
Yeah.
We didn't know it at the time, but that's what he was doing.
I got on Pat Dye. Went over there about 40 times helping him do his book, and I went to his press conferences, and afterwards I goes up and said, Pat, here you got the attention of probably 2 or 3 million people. And what do? You get in there and you get in a fuss. Coach Dodd always had something in mind when he went in there. Either he wanted to talk about some player, wasn't getting enough publicity, or some guy swell-headed, or some coach that was about to leave him, or something, or something to unnerve the other coach. I said, you don't go in there with any plan. You ought to go in there with some reason for being there. Instead, you go in there and get angry. If he didn't change, he went in there and got angry. One last thing about that. One time I went out there and they were quick kicking. And I said, Coach, I haven't seen a quick kick. I don't know when. He said, yeah, the quick kick's coming back. It's time for the quick kick to be back in football. They were fixing to play Duke. And Murray was his nemesis somehow.
They did not like each other.
No. And they had beaten him one time when he was leading 20 minutes. But anyway, so I said, well, I won't be able to write it if y'all going to do it. He said, no, I want it up in the paper. You know, the quick kick is coming back. All right, so I wrote a big story. The quick kick is coming back into football. Got a headline, and he knew old Murray was reading the paper. So when Tech first got the ball, it was like first down and 12 or something, second down and 12 or something. So he let his tailback drop back 2 or 3 things, and the Duke safety man turned his back and started going backwards, and he raised up and threw a pass right over the middle. He wasn't fixing the quick kick.
I did see Coach Dodd get mad though, angry. He got angry at Mr. Minham, wrongly, of course. We had 2 stories. I was covering Tech. Jim was at Georgia, and Jim found out that Coach Rhodes, what was his name? No, the football coach went to Florida. Ray Graves. Ray Graves was going to go to Florida. Wally Butts told you that Ray Graves was going to go to Florida. I found out that the kicker for Georgia Tech was going to flunk out.
Yes,
before the Gator Bowl, and when they have a player that came out. So Jim didn't want to give away his source, so he said, "Hell, you write the Butts story, you write the Graves story, I'll write the Tech story." Remember that? So sure enough, I wrote this story, Ray Graves going to Florida, which turned out to be true. And then Jim wrote the story about the kicker, and I just blew his stack. Got mad at Miller for writing that story because it cost him his kicker in the Gator Bowl.
And you couldn't deny it. Tommy Wells, was that his name?
Tommy Wells, yeah.
And Notre Dame fans realized it was raining on them.
And this cut him out of the job that they're doing. That's funny.
I don't know how many times I think
And we could hear from him saying that.
Well, Bill, come on in.
I got the biggest job
Hey,
you ever
Get in
had.
here.
He said, find yourself a better job.
That's what I call a grand entrance.
Hey, boy, how you doing?
You know Norman.
Nah.
Now we got
Now, start now.
Once his pilot has arrived.
Everybody.
Linda, get here.
No, but I don't.
That's it. So I go back to the paper and I read 2 or 3 paragraphs. No, we want to clean. They went round and round. these people on the road, they're like the tigers in Sambo. I didn't say little like Sambo. I said like the tigers in Sambo.
And to find out that Tiger and everybody was the ones who was
Yeah.
back in the
That's a great story.
By the way, guys, this is amazing to me. I did a signing not long ago, and I look up and Tiger Flower. I swear to God.
Tiger Falls?
I can see right the lead blocks that went under the picture, and all of a sudden, here comes a finger right past me, a end of a finger, and blood all over me, all over my knees. The guy walked over talking and not looking. It wasn't, it was just somebody